Welcome, dear friend. Tonight, we travel back in time, far beyond the age of dinosaurs, to a world that feels both alien and familiar. A world where fiery oceans boiled, where strange creatures drifted through primeval seas, and where life was only just beginning to whisper its story upon the earth. Close your eyes, if you wish, and imagine a planet still young, molten rock cooling into continents, skies heavy with strange gases, oceans shimmering with the very first stirrings of life. Before dinosaurs ruled, before forests rose high, this was a world in its earliest chapters, a place where silence was vast, and every ripple of water carried possibility. In this journey, we'll walk slowly through the forgotten time. You'll meet the creatures that thrived before the giants. You'll drift through shallow seas blooming with coral gardens, and you'll hear how life, fragile yet determined, carved a path that eventually led to the reign of dinosaurs. If you enjoy these gentle explorations through deep history, I invite you to support this growing community. Please take a moment to like this video, share it with a curious friend, and leave a thoughtful comment. I love hearing your reflections and questions. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing so you can join me again each time we drift together into the quiet beauty of science and time. So settle in, breathe deeply, and let us begin our journey into what Earth was truly like before the dinosaurs. You begin at the very start, when Earth is still molten rock and restless seas. You drift through swirling clouds of gas, through fiery rain and cooling crust. Slowly, the air gathers, oceans settle, and a fragile atmosphere wraps the planet. Like a soft blanket, you rest with Earth as it exhales its first breath. Close your eyes and let yourself drift backward in time. Far backward, past your own life, past the lives of all humans, past even the great age of dinosaurs. You drift beyond forests and seas, beyond the very notion of animals and plants. You float backward through deep time until the numbers become so large they no longer feel like numbers at all. 4.5 billion years ago, the Earth was only just born. You arrive in a space crowded with dust and stone, a neighborhood circling a young star. The sun glows brighter than you remember, hot and restless, sending flares of light outward like great sighs of fire. Around it swirls a vast cloud of dust, rock, and gas, leftovers from the sun's own creation. From this cloud, through countless collisions, the planets begin to gather. Earth is one of them. At first, it is not a soft, welcoming world. It is a storm of molten stone, a glowing sphere of fire and chaos. Meteors rain down endlessly, each strike releasing fire and shockwaves that ripple across the surface. The air is not yet air, but a suffocating mix of gases escaping from the deep belly of the planet. Carbon dioxide, nitrogen, water vapor. You float above this violent landscape, watching rivers of glowing lava churn and boil. It feels strange to call this place home. And yet, beneath the violence, something steady is happening. Gravity holds the young Earth together. Bit by bit, the fiery surface cools. Crust begins to harden, though cracks remain, releasing fountains of molten rock. Volcanoes roar like the breathing of some immense creature. Lightning lashes across the thick, dark skies, illuminating clouds heavy with water vapor. You sense the presence of another world nearby, the Moon. It is new too, born from a colossal collision when a Mars-sized body struck the Earth. The impact tore loose molten debris that circled the planet and gathered itself into a companion. The Moon's face still glows faintly, its surface soft with lava seas. Slowly it drifts farther away, but even now, in this early age, it begins to tug at Earth, pulling on the oceans that will one day form. Time here moves differently. What feels like a slow breath to you may span millions of years. You rest in this rhythm, letting the planet's changes wash over you like the tides of a dream. Rain begins to fall, not gentle rain, but torrents lasting for centuries. The young Earth, wrapped in steam, cools enough for water to settle. Oceans collect in great basins, filling cracks in the surface. Slowly, the fiery red fades to deep blue as seas spread wider and wider. Imagine standing here as the first ocean mists rise. The ground beneath you still smolders with heat, but around you stretches a horizon of water, reflecting the faint glow of the new moon. The sky is not yet blue. It is heavy, hazy, colored by volcanic gases. The air you breathe is harsh and strange, but it is air nonetheless. The first breath of a planet learning to cradle life. In this early atmosphere, there is no oxygen yet. The air is thick with carbon dioxide and nitrogen, more like the breath of Mars or Venus today. If you were to breathe deeply, your lungs would ache. And yet, this air is important. It keeps the seas from vanishing back into space. It wraps the Earth in a protective layer, holding warmth, softening the bite of the sun. You drift with the planet through its infancy, watching continents rise and fall. They are not the continents you know. No familiar outlines of Africa, Asia, or the Americas. Instead, they are scattered fragments of rock, shifting and colliding like slow-moving rafts upon the sea. Volcanoes continually remake the land, adding new stone, breaking it apart again. From above, the Earth looks both restless and calm. Clouds swirl in endless spirals, casting shadows over dark oceans. Lightning glitters through storms. The young. Sun shines down, but it is weaker than the one you know now. It burns at about 70% of today's strength. And yet, the Earth does not freeze. The greenhouse gases in the air trap enough warmth to keep the water liquid. A delicate balance emerges, the faint sun and the heavy atmosphere keeping each other in check. As you drift closer, you begin to notice patterns in the stone itself. The crust cools and thickens, breaking into great plates that float on molten rock beneath. They slide and shift, collide and separate. These are the first motions of plate tectonics, a slow dance that will shape mountains, valleys, and oceans for billions of years to come. Even now, the foundations of the world you know are being set. Let your mind wander into the rhythm of these changes. Lava flows, cools, and hardens. Rain falls, gathers, and forms seas. Gases rise, settle, and wrap the planet in layers. Each cycle feels like a breath, each change a heartbeat. Earth, in its infancy, is alive in its own way, not with plants or animals, but with restless elements learning to flow together. Close your eyes and imagine the sound. There are no birdsong or leaves rustling, not yet. Instead, you hear the constant sigh of steam vents, the roar of lava, the hiss of rain striking hot stone. It is a music of fire and water, a lullaby written by the planet itself. Even in this harsh beginning, there is a softness in the rhythm, a promise hidden in the storms that you drift across the surface of the seas. They are dark, rich with dissolved minerals. The water is warm, heated by the planet's inner fire and the sun's gentle touch. Lightning strikes again and again, splitting the air, sending energy into the oceans. In these waters, the ingredients of life are gathering. Molecules form, break apart, and form again. The first whispers of biology are hidden here. The life has not yet begun. For now, the world is still silent. Silent, yet full of potential. The seas hold the chemistry of beginnings. The air holds the warmth of protection. The land holds the promise of shape and stability. Each element is finding its place, each one preparing for what is to come. You rest within this balance, floating gently in the embrace of deep time. as millions of years pass like moments. You begin to notice changes in the skies. The volcanic haze begins to thin. The air clears, letting more sunlight through. Oceans reflect brighter now, shimmering with silver and blue. The moon's pull shapes the waters into tides, slow but steady, a rhythm that will guide life for ages to come. The earth is breathing more deeply, its storms less violent, its surface calmer dot, and yet, calm is always temporary. Even in this early world, impacts still come. Asteroids strike with flashes of fire, sometimes reshaping entire coastlines. But Earth endures. The seas remain. The air holds steady. Slowly, stability grows more frequent than chaos. Think of this moment as a cradle. Earth, once a fiery newborn, has become a world of oceans and sky wrapped in atmosphere. It is still young, still learning, but it is ready. Ready for the first stirrings of life, ready for the great unfolding of possibility. You breathe with the planet now, in and out. The air that surrounds you is heavy and strange, but it feels steady. The seas beneath you are deep and quiet, but they hold secrets. The land is raw and unfinished, but it waits with patience. Everything feels like a pause before a first step. You listen closely, as if you might hear it. The moment when chemistry becomes biology, when molecules begin to organize, when the first cells stir in the water. It has not happened yet, not quite. But the conditions are ready, and the silence feels expectant. You drift a little closer to the surface of the sea, watching ripples move under the pale glow of the moon. The waves seem to whisper of beginnings, though the voices are not yet clear. You know it is coming, a story of life rising from these waters, a story that will continue for billions of years. But here, at this moment, all is still. The earth has taken its first breath. The seas are waiting, the air is waiting, the stones are waiting, and you wait too, resting within the pause between breath and voice, between silence and song. You wonder what the first stirrings of life will feel like, what shapes the oceans will awaken with. You sink gently into the primeval seas, where life stirs for the very first time. Tiny cells float like stars in water, whispering oxygen into the world. The planet is quiet, except for the slow rhythm of microbial life, weaving the first threads of possibility. You float alongside them, part of their ancient dance. You let yourself drift down from the heavy skies into the waiting seas. The water is warm, wrapped in the memory of volcanic heat and the embrace of a young sun. The surface ripples softly under the pale glow of the moon, but below it, the ocean is still, quiet, and vast. You sink deeper, following the calm weight of water around you, letting it carry you into Earth's first living cradle. For now, the seas seem empty. No fish dart past you, no weeds sway in the current, no shells glimmer on the floor. Yet hidden within this emptiness are beginnings. The water is not silent, not really. It hums with chemistry. Molecules drift and collide, pulled together by chance and energy. Lightning flashes above, striking the surface with sparks that split and rearrange the bonds of matter. Volcanoes release gases into the water, stirring it with minerals. Sunlight filters down, not bright, but enough to offer a faint energy for reactions to catch. Within this slow dance, something subtle happens. Simple molecules join together to form more complex ones. Chains and rings of carbon and hydrogen build themselves up, linking into patterns. You imagine them like threads in a loom, weaving possibilities again and again. Most of these threads unravel, vanishing back into the water, but some remain, stable enough to last, long enough to grow. This is not yet life. It is the prelude, the overture before the music begins. But in these quiet seas, the boundary between chemistry and biology begins to blur. A droplet of fatty molecules forms a fragile bubble, enclosing a small pocket of water. Another chain of molecules folds in on itself, taking on the first faint echo of function. And within these bubbles, within these folds, something stirs. You float closer, watching the first cells appear. They are simple, almost invisible, tiny spheres smaller than a grain of dust. And yet, they are alive. They can take in energy, grow, divide, and make copies of themselves. Each one is a fragile miracle, a bubble of persistence in a restless sea. Imagine drifting among them, as if the water were filled with stars. They glow in your mind's eye, though in truth they are too small for you to see. Some live near hydrothermal vents, dark chimneys on the ocean floor that release hot, mineral-rich water. Here, in the shadows, life draws on the chemical energy of Earth itself. Others linger near the surface, pasting the light, using sunlight to shape carbon into food. Slowly, very slowly, they multiply, spreading through the oceans, turning emptiness into a thin veil of life. Time passes differently. Here, for you, it is a gentle drifting, a few slow breaths. But in the measure of Earth, millions of years are slipping by. Generations of cells divide, love, and die. Their remains sink into the water, adding their patterns back into the chemistry of the sea. Slowly, the oceans grow thick with them, a hidden forest of the microscopic, each cell a leaf in an unseen canopy. You pause to notice something extraordinary. Some of these cells, tiny though they are, begin to release a new breath into the air. Oxygen. It slips from their bodies as a byproduct of photosynthesis, the act of turning sunlight into energy. At first, the oxygen vanishes quickly, swallowed by iron in the oceans, binding into rust that falls to the seafloor. Bands of reddish rock begin to form, layering Earth's crust with the evidence of this invisible work. But the cells do not stop. They keep breathing out oxygen, breath after breath, year after year. Slowly, the oceans become saturated. Slowly, the atmosphere itself begins to change. The air, once suffocating, grows richer with this new element. You breathe with the planet now, sensing the shift towards something greater. The Earth is learning a new rhythm, a new kind of breath that will one day support all larger life. Drift upward toward the surface of the water. Sunlight glimmers brighter here, refracting into beams that dance on the waves. You feel the presence of cyanobacteria, the great pioneers of photosynthesis. They form mats and filaments, sometimes, gathering into stromatolites, layered mounds that rise like low, stony hills from the shallow seas. You touch their rough surface and realize you are touching a living city, built slowly, layer by layer, by countless tiny architects. These stromatolites are not dramatic, not towering trees or moving animals. And yet, they are among the most important landscapes Earth has ever known. They shape the chemistry of oceans and air, feeding oxygen into the sky, making possible everything that will follow. You stand quietly beside them, humbled by their patient work. As oxygen fills the world, it also brings new challenges. For many of the earliest microbes, oxygen is poison. They retreat into hidden places, the deep ocean, the mud, the vents where sunlight never reaches. Some vanish forever, unable to survive the new air, but others adapt. They learn to use oxygen not as a threat, but as fuel. With oxygen, cells can release far more energy from their food. With more energy, life can grow more complex. The stage is being set for larger forms, for movement, for diversity. You let yourself drift deeper again, into the cool dark where vents still release their warmth. Here, archaea, another kind of microbe, thrive in extremes. Some live in boiling water, others in acidic pools, others in salt too thick for most life. They remind you that life is stubborn, that it can endure in places that seem impossible. You take comfort in this thought that even in harshness, life finds a way to persist. As you move through these waters, you notice that the ocean itself is changing. With oxygen in the mix, the chemistry shifts. Minerals settle, layers of stone form, and the water clears. The seas take on a deeper, brighter blue. The sky, too, begins to change, washed by oxygen, until it becomes the blue you recognize today. The earth is starting to look more like home. Still, the world remains quiet. For nearly 2 billion years, life is nothing more than these tiny cells, dividing, breathing, slowly reshaping the planet. It may seem uneventful, but in truth, it is profound. These cells are the ancestors of everything, of forests and insects, of whales and birds, of you. Their patience is your inheritance. You pause here, letting that realization sink in. The ocean cradles you, rocking gently. Around you, invisible multitudes continue their work, as they have for ages. Each one a flicker of persistence, a drop of determination in the vast sea. Together, they transform the planet quietly. Without hurry. After what feels like an endless lullaby, a new change begins. Some of these cells begin to join together, forming colonies. At first, it is only a gathering of individuals, each still, able to live alone. But over time, they start to specialize, to depend on one another. One cell provides movement, another stability, another food. Slowly, cooperation takes shape, the seed of multicellular life. You drift among them, watching. Clusters of cells behave like tiny organisms. They are small, fragile, and simple. Yet within them lies the possibility of bodies, tissues, and organs, the blueprint of all complex life. This moment feels like the soft stirring before dawn, a prelude to a new kind of world. Above you, the surface shimmers brighter than ever. The oxygen-rich sky reflects the sun, scattering blue light, filling the air with a clarity unknown before. Below you, stromatolites rise from the shallows, their layered forms telling the story of countless generations. Between them, colonies of cells float, waiting for their chance to bloom. The oceans are no longer only a cradle of chemistry. They are now the nursery of life. You breathe deeply, even if only in imagination, and feel the weight of these beginnings. Life has awakened, gently, quietly, patiently. The seas are alive, though you cannot hear voices or footsteps yet. You can feel their presence, like a heartbeat underwater, steady and enduring. And as you rest here, you cannot help but wonder, what will happen when life, after so long in silence, finally bursts into diversity? What forms will fill the seas when the waiting ends? You watch as life explodes into countless new forms. Trilobites scuttle like living jewels. Soft-bodied creatures glide through ancient seas. Strange eyes open in the water, watching, searching. The ocean becomes a garden of forms never seen before, each one a step in the story you are drifting into. You drift quietly through the oceans of deep time. For ages, life has lingered in simplicity. Tiny cells, patient colonies, quiet mats of stromatolites breathing oxygen into the air. The world has been waiting, almost holding its breath, as though preparing for something vast. And then, in a moment that stretches across millions of years, the silence breaks. The Cambrian period begins, and life blooms in an explosion of form. And movement. The sea around you feels different now. It is no longer a hushed cradle of microbes, but a living tapestry of creatures. Everywhere you turn, new bodies emerge. Bodies that swim, burrow, crawl, and grasp. Shapes that have never been seen before now crowd the waters, filling every available niche. It is as though the ocean floor has become a painter's canvas, splashed with sudden color and light. The trilobites are among the first to catch your eye, They scuttle across the seafloor like armored jewels, their segmented bodies gleaming faintly. Some are small enough to rest upon your fingertip. Others stretch as long as your arm. Their many legs move in rippling waves, propelling them across the sand. Their eyes, complex, faceted, like clusters of tiny windows, glitter with awareness. They look back at you, and for the first time in Earth's story, you feel watched. Around you glide other forms, stranger still. Some creatures move like ribbons, their soft bodies undulating with the current. Others bear long spines or armored, plates as if wearing shields against unseen dangers. A few grow delicate fronds, filtering food from the water. Each shape seems to be an experiment, a new idea tested by the patient hand of evolution. You drift deeper, and there you find one. Of the ocean's wonders, Anomalocaris. Its body is long and graceful, with swimming lobes rippling along its sides. Two great appendages curl from its head, each lined with spines, ready to seize prey. Its mouth opens like a ring of teeth, rotating to crush whatever it captures. It glides past you, elegant and unsettling, a predator born from the new abundance. Nearby, you notice the first reefs forming. They are not made of corals as you know them today, but of early sponges and other reef-building organisms. These structures rise like gentle gardens, sheltering smaller creatures in their shadows. Tiny worms twist through the crevices. Small arthropods crawl over the surfaces, feeding on whatever they find. The reef is alive with movement, a city of the sea in miniature. Everywhere you look, new senses are awakening. Eyes become sharper, more complex. Antennae stretch outward, feeling the currents. Bodies sprout legs, claws, and fins, tools for exploring and surviving. For billions of years, life relied only on drifting and dividing. But now, the seas are full of hunters and prey, of seekers and hiders, of endless interactions. You pause to imagine what this feels like for the creatures themselves. To sense light not only as warmth, but as shape. To move not only with the water, but against it, choosing direction. To feel the touch of another, predator or mate, and to respond with action. These are small revolutions, and yet they change everything. The ocean is no longer a place of waiting. It is a place of motion, of choice, of drama. Above, sunlight streams through the water, turning bodies into silhouettes. You see delicate forms swimming upward, their fringes catching the light. Below, the seafloor is etched with trails and burrows, marks of creatures digging for shelter or food. The ocean floor, once smooth and bare, now carries the handwriting of countless lives. Every ripple of sand becomes a story. You notice how quickly diversity multiplies. Within only a few tens of millions of years, nearly every major body plan appears. Worm-like, crab-like, jelly-like, fish-like, the ancestors of future phyla emerge here in this sudden bloom. Evolution is sketching possibilities with bold strokes, many of which will persist for billions of years. Others will vanish, leaving only faint fossils to whisper their presence. Among the quiet wonders of this age are the first chordates, tiny, soft-bodied creatures with a notochord, a flexible rod that gives their bodies structure. From them, in deep time, will come fish, reptiles, birds, mammals, and you. But here, they are humble, fragile, and easily overlooked. You drift beside them, recognizing in their simple lines the distant seed of vertebrates, the faint outline of a story yet to unfold. The seas feel crowded now, a contrast to the patient stillness of earlier ages. Yet within this busyness, there is still rhythm. Trilobites march steadily across the bottom. Sponges filter water in quiet patience. Predators glide, searching with measured grace. Life pulses, but not in chaos. In balance, as though the ocean itself is orchestrating the bloom. Pause and listen to the silence beneath the movement. The creatures make no sound you can hear. Their drama plays out in gestures, in motion, in the silent language of survival. And yet, to you, it feels like music. A music of eyes opening, of limbs unfolding, of possibilities reaching outward. It is a symphony written not in notes, but in forms. You let yourself imagine the colors. Fossils do not tell us their hues, but you can dream them into brightness. Trilobites shimmering in copper tones, soft-bodied creatures glowing translucent. Blue, fronds of filter feeders swaying like green banners. Perhaps the sea was more muted, or perhaps it was radiant. Either way, the imagination fills the gaps, and the ocean becomes alive in your mind's eye. The Cambrian bloom also leaves its mark in stone. Many of these creatures leave fossils behind, pressed into mud that hardens into shale. In the present day, we find them in places like the Burgess Shale of Canada, where exquisite details remain. The curve of a fin, the stalk of an eye, the ripple of a segment. These fossils are windows, letting us peer into the bloom as if time had passed. As you float in the ancient sea, you realize you are seeing not only with your eyes, but with the memory of rocks. You think of how sudden this bloom appears in Earth's story. For billions of years, life remained microscopic, barely shifting. And then, in a geological instant, diversity explodes. Scientists still wonder why. Perhaps oxygen levels reached a tipping point, allowing more energy for complex bodies. Perhaps ecological interactions, predator and prey, drove arms races of innovation. Perhaps genetic tools, like the development of Hox genes, unlocked new possibilities of form. Perhaps it was all of these together, a convergence of readiness and opportunity. Whatever the reason, you can feel the transformation. The oceans are no longer quiet experiments. They are bustling worlds. Every niche is explored, every layer of water alive. From surface to seafloor, the bloom spreads like fire through a dry forest. Quick and unstoppable. Rest here for a moment. Let the richness wash over you. Feel yourself surrounded by trilobites scuttling, by ribbon-bodied creatures drifting, by predators gliding with silent precision. Each movement adds to the tapestry. Each body tells a story of survival, of possibility. And yet, you know this. Bloom is fragile. Many of these creatures will not last beyond the Cambrian. Their forms, though bold, are fleeting. But others will endure, their body plans echoing through ages, shaping the future of life on Earth. This is the paradox of the bloom. Abundance and impermanence intertwined. You rise slowly toward the surface, where light glitters brighter. The ocean here feels full, alive with currents and forms. And as you look back down into the depths, you sense that this is only the beginning. Life has shown what it can do, and it will not return to stillness. The bloom is a first chapter of diversity, but not the last. You wonder how life will reshape itself again, how it will spread beyond the seas, how it will paint the land with green and movement. You wonder what the next unfolding will feel like when plants and arthropods take their first steps onto stone. For now, you let yourself float, suspended in the bloom, carried by the music of new life. But already, your thoughts are drifting forward toward the first forests of shallow seas and the creatures that will rise to meet the land. The Ordovician and Silurian ages bring corals, sea lily, and the first green hints of land. You feel Earth's breath deepen as moss and early plants root themselves in stone. Arthropods crawl timidly onto shore. You follow their slow, patient steps as life leans closer to land. The Cambrian seas still shimmer in your memory. Trilobites scuttling like jeweled clocks, soft-bodied wonders drifting like ribbons in twilight waters. But as time flows forward, a new chapter opens. The Ordovician begins, and with it, the seas deepen into vast forests, not of trees or leaves, but of corals and crinoids, shells and sponges, woven into reefs that stretch like underwater cities. You drift into this ocean world, and at once feel the richness. The water is thicker with life than ever before. Small creatures swarm, plankton drifting in endless clouds, the foundation of entire food webs. Fish-like forms, jawless and armored, swim through the haze. Beneath them, the seafloor blooms with coral colonies, branching upward like stony trees. These are not yet the reefs of modern tropics, but their shapes are familiar, their ridges catching the light, their crevices sheltering countless lives dot as you move closer. You see delicate sea lily, crinoids, their stalks anchored to the ground, their feathery arms reaching upward. They sway like gardens in a current, catching food drifting by. Around them, brachiopods cling to rocks, their shells opening and closing in patient rhythm. Gastropods crawl slowly across the surfaces, tracing their spirals into the sand. The Ordovician seas are rich with such quiet motions, thousands of small gestures adding up to a great living chorus. Everywhere, shells multiply. Bivalves and mollusks spread, their hard bodies recording their presence in stone. Trilobites remain, though their diversity now shifts. Some grow spines, some flatten against the sediment, some swim more freely through the water. They are still masters of the seafloor, but they share it now with an expanding cast dot, and then you notice something new. Among the swimmers glide creatures armored in plates of bone, the earliest jawless fish. Their bodies are stiff and heavy, yet their presence is remarkable. They are vertebrates, kin of the tiny chordates you once saw in the Cambrian seas. These fish are the beginning of a lineage that will transform the oceans and eventually be land. For now, they move awkwardly, their mouths simple, their motions unrefined. But they are here, and their story has begun dot above. Storms churn the surface. The Ordovician climate is warm, seas high, continents scattered across the globe. Shallow seas flood over continental shelves, creating wide platforms of life. You float across one such shelf, watching how it stretches toward the horizon. The water here is sunlit, rich in nutrients, a perfect home for the growing reefs dot. It is within these shallow seas that diversity flourishes most. Scientists call this the Great Ordovician Biodiversification Event, a time when life multiplies into countless new forms. The ocean becomes layered with interactions, predators, grazers, filter feeders, scavengers, each finding a place in the web. It is as though the Cambrian blue was a beginning sketch, and now the details are filled in, finer, richer, more complete. But not all is gentle. You feel the tug of change, the undercurrent of extinction. Late in the Ordovician, ice sheets spread across Gondwana, one of Earth's great continents. The seas retreat as water freezes and climates shift. Many creatures vanish, unable to endure. Yet even this loss carries forward new possibilities. Those who survive will continue to weave the story. Time moves, and you drift with it into the Silurian. The seas calm, climate stabilize, and life begins to stretch its reach beyond the water's edge. You feel the difference immediately. The oceans remain full, but the shorelines begin to whisper something new, a greening. You approach the coast and see thin films of algae clinging to damp stone, just as they did long before. But now there is more. Moss-like plants take hold, their tiny stems upright, their leaves primitive but determined. They spread across moist ground, weaving the first fragile carpets of green. With them come liverworts, hornworts, simple plants breathing through pores, rooting themselves in shallow soils. These are not yet forests, not even meadows, but they are beginnings, a skin of life upon the land. Kneel closer, and you notice their struggle. The land is harsh, dry compared to the sea, with no tides to bathe them, no constant cushion of water. These pioneers adapt in small ways, structures, to hold themselves upright, tissues to keep water within, spores to scatter on the wind. Each step is modest, yet profound. They are teaching Earth to wear green dot, and then something stirs in the shadows between the stones. Small arthropods, descendants of trilobite-like ancestors, crawl from tide pools onto damp ground. Millipede, forms, many-legged, explore cautiously. Scorpions, ancestors of predators, creep into the shallows. Their bodies glisten, armored for protection, limbs shifting between water and air. They are testing this new world, step by tentative step. You watch their tracks etch the sand, the first footprints of land animals. They are not yet far from water, never straying too long, but they are bold enough to try. And with them, the story of life expands. What began in the sea now leans toward the sky. You look back at the ocean, still vast and full. Corals rise taller, reefs more complex, fish grow more varied. Some sprout small paired fins, giving them better control. Jawless fish still dominate, but the first jawed fish begin to appear, reshaping what it means to be a predator. Eyes sharpen, bodies streamline, fins beat more powerfully. The seas remain the heart of life, but their children are restless, their gaze turning outward. You return to shore, where plants continue their patient work. They spread slowly, mosses creeping further, vascular tissues evolving, stems lifting higher. In some places, small forests of seaweed-like plants root in wetlands. Green thickets no taller than your ankle, yet forests by the standards of this age. They breathe oxygen into the air, changing its balance, preparing the atmosphere for greater breath. Pause and breathe with them. Imagine the air becoming richer, softer, more alive. For the first time, land itself feels inhabited no longer. Barren expanse of stone and dust. With each patch of green, the earth's surface softens. With each spore that drifts, the future is seeded. The Silurian seas remain your companion, though now they feel like nurseries preparing for greater leaps. The balance of predators and prey sharpens. Coral reefs expand into some of the largest structures Earth has yet known, homes for countless species. Crinoids wave their arms like underwater meadows. Trilobites, though still present, begin their slow decline, overshadowed by new forms. Time moves, and with it, the cast of life shifts. You feel a quiet rhythm: bloom, decline, renewal. The oceans swell with diversity, then lose some of it to change. The land greens, step by fragile step. And through it all, life persists, adapts, invents. Imagine standing at the edge of one of these ancient shores. Before you, shallow seas stretch, bright with reefs and swaying creatures. Behind you, mosses cling to rock. Arthropods creep with cautious intent. The air tastes faintly of new breath, of oxygen made by plants. It is a threshold moment, a balance between sea and land, between past and future. Stay here for a while. Listen to the waves break gently on Ordovician reefs. Watch the moss spread its green across Silurian stone. Feel the courage of a scorpion, lifting its body into air, the patience of a plant rooting itself in harsh soil. This is life at the edge, curious, determined, unafraid of failure. In these shallow seas and greening shores, the world feels both ancient and new. You sense that the great drama of life is only just beginning, that all of this is a prelude. For though moss and arthropods make the first steps, far greater forests and creatures wait just beyond the horizon of time. You let yourself drift once more, carried by the current of ages. The Ordovician reefs fade behind you. The Silurian mosslands whisper ahead. Already, the Devonian world begins to call, a time when plants will rise taller, when fish will grow bolder, when life will take strides that shake the surface of the earth. The Devonian waters shimmer with armored giants, sleek predators, and graceful fins. Above, the first forests rise, dark and damp. Amphibians test the shore, their bodies learning to breathe air. You walk with them between two worlds, water and land, in the twilight of evolution. The world has shifted again. You leave behind the green whispers of the Silurian, where moss clung timidly to stone and scorpions crept uncertainly across damp ground. Now, as the Devonian age unfolds, the seas open wide, rich and deep, and you feel yourself sinking into a time often called the age of fishes. The ocean around you hums with movement. Fish glide in every direction, small, swift, armored, sleek. Their scales flash like mirrors in the filtered sunlight. This is their era, their moment, when water becomes a kingdom of fins. You let yourself drift with them, carried in their current, watching how life grows bolder in form and function. Among the first to catch your eye are the placoderms, armored fish, their heads and bodies encased in heavy plates. They move like swimming tanks, their mouths opening and closing with mechanical precision. Some are small, no longer than your arm. Others, like Dunkleosteus, reach lengths of 6 meters or more. Imagine a predator with jaws so powerful they could snap bone in an instant. Yet for all their ferocity, they move with a kind of dignity, their armor gleaming as if forged by ancient hands. Around them swim other forms, lobe-finned fish, with fleshy, muscular fins that seem less like paddles and more like protolimbs. Watch them closely. Each fin bends with strength, joints hidden beneath the skin, as though they are rehearsing for a different stage, a stage not bound by water. These are the ancestors of all four-limbed creatures to come, the first hint that land will not remain untouched for long. You float higher and notice another lineage, the ray-finned fish, delicate and quick, their fins thin as veils. Unlike the lobed fins, these are webs stretched over slender bones, perfect for swift maneuvering in open water. They shimmer in schools, catching the sunlight in flashing waves. Most of the fish you know today, from goldfish to tuna, will descend from these delicate swimmers. Already, the great divide between fin types has begun. The Devonian seas are a spectrum of invention. Jawless fish, so ancient in form, still drift along the seafloor, but now they are overshadowed. Jaws themselves are the true revolution of this age. With jaws come new ways to bite, to chew, to grasp. Predation becomes more complex, more efficient. Teeth cut through shells. Powerful mouths seize prey. The ocean becomes a stage of hunters, and the hunted, balance maintained through adaptation and counter-adaptation. You turn slowly, letting the yell. Story of the Devonian wrap around you. It is not only the fish that command attention. Rising above the coastlines, you see something else. Forests. The land has changed since the Silurian carpets of moss and liverworts. Now trees rise, tall and strange, their trunks thick, their canopies forming dark green ceilings. These are not trees as you know them. Some, like Archaeopteris, spread fern-like fronds from woody trunks, hybrids between ancient ferns and modern conifers. Others, like giant club mosses, tower upward with stiff, scaly surfaces. Their roots grip the soil, their branches reach for light, and their shadows fall across the damp ground. Step gently into this Devonian forest. The air here is thick, humid, heavy with the smell of damp earth and plant resin. Streams cut through tangled roots. Fungi rise in strange forms, taller than a person, decomposing fallen wood. Insects scuttle along the trunks, though they are still small and tentative. These forests are not filled with birdsong or mammal calls, not yet. They are hushed, a green cathedral where the only voices belong to plants and water. Pause and breathe with them. These trees change more than the scenery. They change the planet itself. With deep roots, they fracture rock, creating true soil. For the first time, with broad leaves and towering trunks, they pull vast amounts of carbon dioxide from the air, releasing oxygen in return. The climate shifts as forests spread. Oxygen levels rise, carbon levels fall. The balance of the atmosphere tilts. Entire ice ages will one day be triggered by this greening of the land. You linger at the border of water and forest, where amphibians make their first bold journeys. From lobe-finned ancestors, some evolve lungs alongside gills, limbs alongside fins. Their bodies are stout, their movements awkward, yet their intent is clear. Watch one as it hauls itself onto damp earth, its skin glistening, its eyes blinking in the sunlight. It gasps air, testing a new way of breathing. It pauses and lumbers a few steps forward before slipping back into the water. Each attempt is both fragile and monumental. You follow another as it stays longer, exploring shallow pools in the forest shade. Its limbs, though clumsy, hold its weight. Its lungs draw air more steadily. It becomes less a visitor and more a resident. These are the first amphibians, creatures between worlds. Their bodies are proof that life is no longer content with water alone. The age of fishes is not only about abundance, but about thresholds. At every turn, you sense boundaries being crossed. Jaws emerge where there were none. Fins transform into limbs. Plants stretch skyward, roots digging deeper. Amphibians step onto shore. Life invents and reinvents again. But even in this age of flourishing, shadow gathers. Extinction pulses quietly in the background, as it always does. At the end of the Devonian, a series of crises will sweep through, wiping away many species, especially those in the reefs. Coral communities, once vast, will shrink, and many placoderms will vanish. Yet even this loss is not an ending, but a passage. Those who remain will carry the story forward into new forms. You drift back into the sea, letting the forests recede behind you. You swim again among the fish, watching their scales gleam, their fins ripple, their jaws flash. It is as though the ocean is writing a rehearsal, crafting bodies and functions that will be used again and again across the ages. You feel the continuity, each innovation a seed, each adaptation a stepping stone. Close your eyes and you can hear the rhythm, the slow thrum of water against armored plates, the gentle rush of fins slicing currents, the breath of trees above, whispering oxygen into the sky. It is a symphony of life's persistence, a music played across ocean and land alike. Stay here a while longer at this threshold. Sit with the amphibian on the riverbank as it watches the forest shadows. Swim with the placoderm as it glides, armored and unyielding. Drift with the ray-finned schools as they shimmer in waves of silver light. Imagine the stillness of a forest night when the only sound is the trickle of water and the whisper of leaves. This is the Devonian gift. Transition, transformation, thresholds crossed in silence. The earth feels fuller, more complex, more alive. And yet, you sense again that this is only the beginning. Life has stepped onto land, but just barely. The forests are tall, but not yet complete. The amphibians walk, but unsteadily. So much remains to come. You lean into that thought, letting it carry you forward. Already, the next age awaits, an age of swamp forests and giant insects, where oxygen grows rich, where life on land begins to stretch its legs with greater certainty. You feel the hush of the Carboniferous, drawing near, a world of endless green and wings wide enough to darken the sky. The Carboniferous world is a dream of endless green swamps and towering trees. Oxygen fills the air like a lush perfume, feeding dragonflies with wings as wide as hawks. Millipedes longer than a person crawl through fallen leaves. You rest among the roots and breathe in the thick, ancient air. The Devonian age fades like the echo of a tide. You remember the shimmer of armored fish, the first forests rising in damp silence, the tentative steps of amphibians on muddy banks. Now, as you drift forward through time, you enter the Carboniferous, a world transformed into an emerald dream god at once. You feel the air. It is thicker, richer, sweeter with oxygen than any age before. Each breath you take feels heavy and lush, as though the air itself is alive. Oxygen makes up more than a third of the atmosphere now, far more than in the world, you know. This abundance does not go unnoticed by life. Every creature here grows in response to it, wings and bodies stretching beyond familiar limits, filling the forests with strange proportions. Look around. The land is no longer tentative in its greening. It is drenched in it. Endless swamps spread across lowlands, and within them, towering trees rise, lycopsids, giant club mosses, reaching 30 meters into the air. Their trunks are thick, their bark patterned with diamond shapes, their crowns branching high above. Mixed among them stand towering horsetails, their hollow stems jointed like flutes, some as tall as buildings. Ferns spread their fronds beneath, carpeting the ground in delicate green lace. You step softly into this cathedral of plants, and the air hums with dampness. The forest floor is a tangle of roots and fallen trunks, decaying slowly in the wet soil. Fungi erupt from wood, some forming tall, column-like bodies, ancient fungi that rise higher than a person, breaking down what the forest leaves behind. The cycle of growth and decay is constant here, each fallen tree feeding the swamp, each spore giving rise to another breath of green. Pause and listen. There are no bird calls, no mammal rustlings, no flowering plants with bright petals. Those are still far in the future. Instead, the forest speaks in softer voices, the whisper of fronds brushing against each other, the drip of water from tall stems, the rustle of leaves stirred by the wings of great insects. Above you, a shadow passes. You look up and see a dragonfly, not the delicate creature you know, but a giant called Meganeura. Its wings stretch nearly 70 centimeters across, as wide as a hawk's. It flutters slowly through the heavy air, every beat echoing in the silence. It is both graceful and unnerving, its huge compound eyes watching as it hunts smaller insects in the forest air. The oxygen-rich atmosphere makes this possible. Insects, who breathe through tiny tubes in their bodies, can grow larger than in any other age, their structures supported by the abundance around them. On the ground, another giant crawls into view. A millipede, longer than your body, its many legs rippling in waves, its hard shell glistening in the damp light. This is Arthropleura, the largest millipede to ever live, stretching over 2 meters in length. It moves slowly, but with steady power, sliding over moss and rotting wood. It feeds on decaying plants, recycling the endless green into soil once more. You step aside as it passes, awed by its size, yet comforted by its calm persistence. Nearby, amphibians slip between water and land. Their bodies are larger now, more diverse, some with wide heads and strong limbs, others more serpentine, gliding through swamps. They breathe both air and water, their lives tied to the dampness of this emerald world. Some hunt in pools, lunging at insects and fish. Others rest on logs, their slick skin gleaming in filtered light. They are the heirs of Devonian pioneers, now more confident, more varied, exploring the niches of swamp and stream. In the deeper water, you glimpse something new, the first reptiles. They are small, almost lizard-like, their skin dry, their eggs enclosed in protective shells. Unlike Amphibians, they are not bound to water for reproduction. Their eggs can survive on land, safe from drying out. This is a quiet revolution. Though they are small and hidden now, these reptiles hold within them the key to future empires. They can roam further from swamps, explore drier ground, expand into worlds amphibians cannot. But here, in the Carboniferous, amphibians still dominate. Reptiles are whispers, not yet shouts. You wander deeper into the swamp forest, where light filters through thick canopies. The ground is spongy, layers of decaying plants building thick mats. Over millions of years, these layers will compress, forming the coal that gives this period its name. Carboniferous, the coal-bearing age. Each fallen leaf, each drowned tree, each fern pressed into the mud becomes part of this deep black storehouse of ancient sunlight. Long after this forest is gone, the memory of its green will remain in seams of stone, carrying the echo of this lush world into human hands. As you walk, you feel the forest close around you, immense yet quiet. The air hums with insects. Winged mayflies rise in clouds above the water. Beetles crawl across fallen bark. Spiders spin their webs between towering stems, waiting for prey. The insects of this time are bold in size and number, their bodies thriving in the heavy air. Their buzzing becomes the chorus of the Carboniferous night. Kneel by the water, and you will see ripples. Fish still swim in these swamps, though many are armored, their scales thick, their bodies heavy. Some are lungfish, capable of breathing air, burrowing into mud when water's dry. Others are early sharks, slender and sharp, patrolling the dark currents. Life is layered here. Fish in the pools, amphibians at the banks, insects in the air, trees rising above them all. And yet, for all its abundance, this world carries fragility. Too much oxygen makes fires burn more fiercely. A single spark could sweep through a forest, flames feeding hungrily on air. Too much carbon drawn down by plants cools the planet, triggering ice ages that shift shorelines and climates. Even in its fullness, the Carboniferous is balanced on a delicate edge. Still, in this moment, you simply breathe it in. You let the heavy oxygen fill your lungs, let the green shadows fold around you. You run your hand across the ridged bark of a lycopsid tree, knowing that its texture will one day be pressed into coal. You listen to the slow rasp of Arthropleura, moving through leaves, the flutter of Meganeura above. The world is thick with presence, rich with possibilities. Stay here a while. Rest in this emerald kingdom, where life is lush, where forests stretch unbroken across continents, where insects grow to impossible sizes, and amphibians dominate the land. Imagine the nights glowing with fireflies, larger than your hand. Imagine the air heavy with the perfume of damp earth and resin. Imagine the stillness, broken only by the ripple of water or the beat of enormous wings. But as always, time moves. You feel the Carboniferous beginning to shift. Climate changes stir once. Again, glaciers grow in the south, lowering sea levels, fragmenting swamps. The great forests falter in places, their continuity broken. Extinctions ripple quietly through ecosystems, reshaping what thrives and what vanishes. The giant insects will dwindle when oxygen falls. The amphibians, though strong, will face challenges. The reptiles, though small, will find their chance. You stand at the edge of this transition, feeling both the fullness of the Carboniferous and the quiet undercurrent of change. This emerald kingdom will not last forever, but its legacy will. Echo in stone, in coal, in memory. As you step back into the flow of time, you look once more at the swamp forest. You see dragonflies gliding through shafts of light, millipedes sliding across damp logs, amphibians croaking in shallow pools. You breathe deeply, filling yourself with the lush oxygen of this ancient world. And as you exhale, You sense the land preparing for something new, a drier, harsher age where reptiles will rise and deserts will spread beneath a gathering sun. In the Permian age, reptiles rose, carrying within them the seeds of future empires. You meet Dimetrodon basking under the hot sun, its sail a living flag of survival. The continents gather into one vast land, Pangaea, and deserts spread. Life grows both fierce and fragile. The Carboniferous dream fades behind you, its emerald swamps dissolving into memory. The air you once breathed, so thick with oxygen, thins now. The lush forests shrink, broken by changing climates and cooling. Rhythms of the earth. Slowly, step by step, you drift into the Permian age, a world unlike any you have seen before. The land rises vast and dry, shaped into new forms. The continents, once scattered, now move closer, locking together into coal. One immense supercontinent, Pangaea. It stretches across the globe like a giant sleeping beast, its spine arched in mountains, its skin cracked into deserts, its coasts bordered by wide seas. The air here is more arid, the seasons harsher, the distances greater. Where once swamps dominated, now sand and rock begin to rule. You walk across this land and feel the shift. The forests of lycopsids and towering horsetails are gone, replaced by new plants better suited for drier air. Conifers rise with needles that do not lose. Water easily, their cones tucked like secrets, waiting for the right time to open. Seed ferns spread across the land, their fronds still familiar, but their seeds strong enough to withstand harsher ground. Shrubs and hardy plants cling to the edges of rivers and streams, while wide interiors lie bare, waiting for rains that do not always come. The animals of this time mirror the land's resilience. Amphibians still linger, but the drier climate pushes them to the margins, tying them closely to water. Reptiles, however, step forward with confidence. Their eggs, enclosed in shells, no longer require the cradle of the swamp. Their skin, tougher and less prone to drying, allows them to wander further. Their bodies, varied and inventive, spread into every corner of Pangaea. Pause here on a flat stretch of desert stone. The air is hot, shimmering above the sand. There, resting like a sentinel, is Dimetrodon. Its long body sprawls against the ground, legs splayed to either side, a mouth lined with sharp, conical teeth. A jirai is drawn to its sail, a tall fan of bone and skin rising from its back, catching the light. Dimetrodon is not a dinosaur, though it is often mistaken for one. It is a synapsid, a distant cousin to the lineage that will one day become mammals. The sail may help it warm under the morning sun or cool in the heat of the afternoon. It may serve as a signal, a display to rivals or mates. Whatever its purpose, it glows like a living banner, a symbol of survival in this shifting world. Watch as it opens its mouth in a wide yawn. The teeth gleam, perfect tools for tearing into prey. Dimetrodon hunts amphibians and reptiles alike, a dominant predator of its time. Its heavy form moves slowly, but with power, each step deliberate, each motion patient. In this land of extremes, patience is survival. You continue your walk and find others. Smaller reptiles scurry across rocks, their bodies slender, their legs tucked beneath them in ways that allow swifter movement. Some are herbivores, nibbling tough plants. Others are insect hunters, darting quickly with sharp jaws. Reptiles diversify, each shape an answer to the land's questions. Long before the age of dinosaurs, they are already testing forms, inventing new solutions, carving out futures. Look closer, and you see the ancestors of turtles, their ribs broadening into protective shells. You glimpse the first traces of creatures that will lead to lizards and snakes, their bodies streamlined and flexible. You notice synapsids like Edaphosaurus, a plant eater with its own sail, smaller than Dimetrodon's, but no less striking. Its teeth are blunt, designed not for tearing flesh, but for grinding plants, showing how varied this group already becomes. The Permian world is alive with experimentation. Each creature, each adaptation, is a step in a long story that will echo into ages to come. Yet beneath this variety lies a quiet tension. Life flourishes, but it does so in the shadow of instability. You feel it in the climate. Pangaea's vastness creates deserts in its heart, far from the moisture of oceans. Summers are long and dry, winters harsh. Rain falls unevenly, carving rivers that flood and then vanish. Ecosystems are fragile, depending on rhythms that shift with each change of wind or sea dot, and still, life pushes on. In rivers, amphibians grow large, some reaching lengths of 6 meters, like the crocodile-like Prehistoric. Their jaws snap at fish, their bodies gliding through water with ancient ease. On land, smaller reptiles lay their eggs in dry soil, safe from the dangers of drying out. Synapsids, diverse and creative, rise as both predators and prey. Dimetrodon rules the top, but others like gorgonopsids with saber-like teeth will appear later, fierce and powerful, their gazes sharp as the deserts they roam. Sit for a while beneath a conifer, its needles sighing in the hot wind. You can almost feel the earth preparing itself, testing balances, weaving new tapestries of survival. The Permian is a crucible, a time when life proves its resilience against shifting ground and shifting air. But within this resilience lies vulnerability. You sense it, though the creatures do not. At the edge of the Permian age, one of the greatest, trials in Earth's history awaits, a mass extinction that will sweep away most of what lives. Yet here, in the middle chapters of the Permian, life is unaware, moving with determination, basking in the sun, feeding in rivers, crawling across. The vastness of Pangaea. For now, you remain in this unfolding. You watch as Dimetrodon lifts its head, sensing a movement in the sand. A smaller reptile scurries, and with one swift strike, the predator's jaws close. Dust rises, silence returns. Survival here is not gentle, but it is steady. Each act of hunting, each act of feeding, is part of the balance that sustains this. Land, look up at the sky. Clouds drift in wide sweeps. The sun burns hot. The air, though thinner in oxygen than before, is still alive with breath, carrying seeds and spores across great distances. Somewhere far inland, conifers drop their cones, their seeds spreading on the wind. Somewhere else, a small reptile lays its eggs beneath warm sand, ensuring another generation. The story continues, carried quietly forward. You walk again, feeling the vastness of Pangaea beneath your steps. Mountains rise like walls, deserts spread like oceans of stone, rivers carve lines of silver through valleys. It is a world at once united and lonely, a single landmass holding almost all of Earth's surface. This unity creates both opportunity and fragility. Species can spread far, but when climates shift, there are few places to escape. The stage is set for both expansion and collapse. Yet in this moment, you breathe in its presence. You feel the strength of reptiles rising, the resilience of plants adapting, the determination of synapsids carving their paths. Life is fragile, but it is also persistent. Each shape, each sound, each breath is a promise of continuity. Rest here, beside the quiet shadow of Dimetrodon's sail. Feel the heat of the stone beneath you, the dryness of the air, the vast silence, stretching in every direction. This is a different beauty than the Carboniferous swamps, less lush, more austere, but no less profound. It is the beauty of survival, of adaptation, of life finding its way, even when the world grows harsher. Stay for a moment longer. Watch the shadows lengthen across the desert floor, Watch the predators retreat into the cooler night. Watch the smaller creatures emerge from burrows to scavenge and feed. The cycle continues, steady as the stars above dot, and as you prepare to step forward again, you carry with you the memory of this unfolding, the reptiles rising, the synapsids experimenting, the land itself shifting into new patterns. You sense that great change is near, both in triumph and in loss. The story of life is never still. A Permian extinction arrives like a hush falling over the planet. Volcanoes darken the sky, oceans turn strange, and 9 out of 10 creatures vanish. You walk through quiet forests of ash, through empty shorelines, listening to a silence that almost ends the story. Yet still, a spark remains. The warmth of the Permian sun lingers on your skin as you step forward. Yet the air feels heavier now, as though something unseen has shifted. The land that once rang with the calls of reptiles and the movements of amphibians grows strangely still. You find yourself standing on the threshold of one of Earth's most profound turning points, the end Permian extinction, sometimes called the Great Dying Ghat. It begins slowly, like the faint tremors before a storm. Deep within the crust of the planet, in a region we now call Siberia, the Earth begins to crack open. Lava flows spill across the land in eruptions that last not days or weeks, but hundreds of thousands of years. These are not sudden bursts like volcanoes you might picture today. They are floods of fire, steady and relentless, covering millions of square kilometers. The ground itself glows, rivers of molten rock carving through forests, burying valleys, reshaping continents. You imagine standing on the edge of one of these lava fields, the horizon glowing red for years on end. The air smells of sulfur, ash. Each eruption pours not only fire, but gases into the sky, carbon dioxide, methane, sulfur compounds, shifting the balance of the atmosphere. These invisible breaths of the earth will ripple outward, altering air, water, and life itself. The first to feel the change are the skies. Ash drifts upward, veiling the sun. Days grow dim, shadows lengthen unnaturally, and the warmth of sunlight softens into a muted glow. Then, paradoxically, the earth grows hotter. The blanket of carbon dioxide traps heat, warming the surface like an oven with its door shut tight. Seasons grow more extreme. Drought stretches across the land. Deserts widen, swallowing grasslands, drying rivers, starving forests. You walk through a woodland once filled with conifers and seed ferns. The trees stand blackened now, their needles fallen, their trunks charred. Insects that once buzzed in swarms grow fewer, their songs cut short. A hush falls between the branches. The forest feels like a cathedral emptied of its congregation. And the oceans fares no better. The warming climate alters the balance of waters, changing currents and oxygen levels. As volcanic gases mix with rain, acidic waters flow into the seas, unsettling delicate ecosystems. Corals bleach and crumble, their skeletons dissolving into silence. Trilobites, survivors of hundreds of millions of years, falter at last. Great schools of fish scatter and thin. Beneath the surface, a stranger danger brews. As the oceans warm, they lose their oxygen, turning vast regions into dead zones where breath is impossible. Imagine yourself floating in those ancient waters. At first, you see only emptiness. No fish, no drifting corals, only a faint green haze. Then you realize the haze is life, but life has gone wrong. Bacteria blooming in low oxygen seas, releasing toxic gases like hydrogen sulfide. The ocean itself becomes a poison, clouds of deadly vapor rising toward the surface, drifting into the air. The boundary between sea and sky blurs, both carrying the weight of extinction. 9 out of every 10 species vanish. Whole families of creatures, entire ways of living, end in this chapter of Earth's story. The great amphibians disappear, their long reign collapsing in the silence of dried rivers. Many reptiles fall, their eggs no longer safe, their food no longer plentiful. Insects, once countless and resilient, shrink in diversity. It is the largest extinction the Earth has ever known, greater than the one that will later take the dinosaurs, greater than any before or since. You walk through it gently, like moving through a dream. The land grows quieter with each step. No longer do you hear the rush of amphibians sliding into water, the hiss of insects rising from the trees, the calls of reptiles echoing across dry valleys. Instead, you hear the whisper of wind carrying ash, the crackle of fire still smoldering in distant hills, the sigh of waves against lifeless shores. Pause on a ridge and look outward. The horizon stretches endless, but it feels empty. The absence of life is a presence all its own, heavy and vast. The silence is not only soundless. It is weight pressing against your chest, slowing your breath. You sense how close Earth has come to losing its spark entirely. And yet, as you listen more closely, you notice faint rhythms that remain. In a shallow pool, algae still bloom, catching sunlight even through the haze. In cracks of the soil, burrowing creatures persist, hiding underground, feeding on roots or detritus. A few reptiles endure, their bodies leaner, their lives cautious, but still alive. And in the oceans, though many perish, some lineages hold fast. Fish with hardy lungs, mollusks with shells that resist dissolution, tiny plankton clinging to life in the drifting currents. This is the pattern of Earth. Even in loss, there is persistence. Even in endings, there are beginnings folded quietly within. You kneel by the shore of a river reduced to a trickle. Its stones lie bare in the sun, its water shallow and warm. Beneath a rock, you glimpse a small reptile hiding, its skin mottled, its movements quick. It does not know the scale of what has happened around it. It only knows survival, the next breath, the next meal, the next hiding place. And that is enough. Consider how fragile this thread is, and yet how strong. Out of the vast web of life that once thrived, only a fraction remains. But from that fraction, all the richness of the future will grow. The story of mammals, of birds, of reptiles yet to come, rests on these survivors. The silence feels immense, but it is not complete. Beneath it, a pulse continues. The land lies waiting. The forests are gone, but seeds endure, carried in soil, sheltered in cones, scattered by wind. When the air clears, when the rains return, new greenery will spread. The oceans are altered, but life clings to the edges, waiting for balance to return. Earth itself, wounded, begins to weave its healing. Walk further into the silence. Each step is soft, for you tread on ground that has seen fire, water, and emptiness. The air is heavy but calm. There is sorrow here, but also patience. Extinction is not only an end. It is a clearing, painful and vast, but creating space for something new. You pause once more and look at the horizon. The sun pierces the ash now, and then shafts of light breaking through gray. In those beams, you see dust glittering, but also the outlines of possibility. What will rise from this silence? Which survivors will step forward into the next age? You already know the answer, though faintly. The spark of reptiles still burns. The lineage of mammals sleeps quietly in burrows. Plants hold seeds in there, grasp ready to bloom again. Out of emptiness, new forms will take shape. Out of silence, new voices will call across the land and sea. For now, you breathe in the hush. You let the quiet settle in you, like a long exhale after a storm. You honor the lives that ended here, the richness that passed away, and you honor the resilience that remains, the thread that carries forward, thin but unbroken. stay a little longer in this stillness. Notice how the earth rests, how time slows, how the silence is not only absence, but also preparation. You are standing between eras in the long pause between one flourishing and another. This is not the end of the story, but a breath held before the next chapter. In the Triassic dawn, survivors rise. Small reptiles dart between sunlit rocks, and the first true mammals stir in hidden burrows. The land is harsh, but alive again. You travel across deserts and rivers, seeing the resilience of life riding itself back onto Earth's surface. The silence of the Permian still lingers in your mind, like a long breath that refuses to end. But slowly, as if the Earth itself exhales, sound returns. The Triassic dawn rises not in a sudden burst, but in gentle fragments. A flutter of insects returning to the air, the rustle of reptiles across sand, the trickle of rivers carving paths through dry soil. You open your eyes and find the world is no longer empty. It is raw, fragile, yet unmistakably alive. The continents look different now. Long before mountains rise in familiar forms, before oceans settle into their modern shapes, the land is gathered together as one vast body. Pangaea. From horizon to horizon, it stretches almost endless, an immense supercontinent bathed in dry winds. Deserts spread like oceans of sand, their dunes rolling beneath a sky still touched with haze. Rain falls less often here. Rivers twist like thin silver threads, winding slowly across plains of stone. The earth feels both enormous and bare, a stage swept clean, awaiting new actors. At first glance, life appears sparse. But look closer. On the edge of a desert, you notice tufts of green, ferns unrolling delicate fronds, cycads with thick leaves rising like small palms. In the distance, the early ancestors of conifers cluster together, their dark needles reaching skyward. These are the quiet architects of recovery, binding the soil, shading the ground, weaving the first forests of a reborn world. Their presence softens the barrenness, hinting at what may yet come. And moving between these plants, you glimpse survivors. The reptiles, though diminished, have not vanished. Instead, they begin to diversify in this new landscape. Some grow, lean and swift, racing across open ground with light steps. Others develop armored hides, their scales glinting under the sun like shields. A few linger near rivers, their bodies sliding between water and land, continuing the dance of their amphibian ancestors. Each step, each adaptation, is a line written in the book of resilience. Imagine sitting quietly near a rocky outcrop, the heat of the Triassic sun warming your skin. A small reptile scurries past, its long tail flicking behind it like a whip. Its limbs are nimble, its body agile, built for survival in a harsh climate. You sense its alertness, the way it pauses at every sound, the way its eyes flicker with caution. Life here is precarious, every movement a balance between hunger and danger. Yet there is determination in its stride, a quiet will to continue. Beneath the surface of this same outcrop, in the shelter of dark burrows, something new is stirring. They are small, almost hidden from view, but their presence marks a turning point. The first true mammals are here, not yet the creatures you know, but tiny insect eaters, soft-furred and warm-blooded. They live in secret, under roots, beneath stones, within hollowed soil. Their nights are filled with foraging, their senses sharp in the darkness. They are fragile, yet their warmth sets them apart. A new thread in the weave of evolution. Pause and listen. You hear the scratching of their claws in the dirt, the faint squeaks of communication, the rustle of tiny bodies moving in the dark. It is easy to overlook them in a world of larger reptiles and sprawling landscapes. But these small mammals hold within them the promise of futures unimaginable. Their survival strategy is not dominance, but persistence. not size, but subtlety. They thrive by remaining hidden, by taking the overlooked spaces, by carrying the flame of possibility quietly. Through time got above ground, the air vibrates with other new arrivals. Insects regain their diversity, buzzing between ferns and cycads, carrying pollen as they go. Dragonflies skim above streams, their wings catching sunlight like shards of glass. Beetles crawl along bark, their shells hard and gleaming. The world hums again, softly, steadily, as the small creatures fill the silence with movement. Follow a riverbank, and you will see another shift taking place. The fish that survived the great dying have begun to branch into new forms. Some develop tougher scales, some longer fins. Early ancestors of modern amphibians still cling to these waters, but the reptiles are the ones who increasingly claim the land. In their jaws and limbs and lungs, the earth experiments with new possibilities. Out of their ranks, in time, the great dinosaurs will rise. But for now, they are small, tentative, testing the edges of what life can become. The climate remains harsh. Summers scorch the land, winters bite with sudden chill. The deserts stretch wide, challenging every living thing to endure. Yet it is precisely this challenge that fuels innovation. In the struggle to survive, new strategies emerge. Some creatures adapt to conserve water, their bodies lean and efficient. Others become swift hunters, their senses tuned to detect the faintest movement. Plants deepen their roots, spreading slowly across barren ground. Each sprout a quiet act of defiance against emptiness. Stand for a moment on a dune and feel the wind press against you. Sand shifts under your feet, sliding in ripples like water. The air smells dry, carrying dust across vast distances. In this environment, every seed that germinates is a victory. Every creature that grows to adulthood, a triumph. Life feels precious here, not abundant yet, but treasured for its rarity. And in that rarity, you sense beauty, the courage of survival, the poetry of persistence. As you journey further, the diversity becomes clearer. Some reptiles take to the skies, their elongated fingers stretching into wings of skin. These are the first pterosaurs, fragile gliders at first, but pioneers of flight. Imagine watching one launch from a cliff, its wings catching air, its body lifting into sunlight. The sky, once silent, now holds motion again. Other reptiles lengthen their bodies, slipping back into the seas. Ichthyosaurs, with their sleek forms, begin to swim like dolphins, their movements fluid and graceful. They chase schools of fish, their eyes wide and adapted to the depths. The oceans, once poisoned and empty, now ripple with new hunters. Each wave carries a reminder. Even the darkest waters can bloom again with life. Pause by the shoreline and watch as waves curl against sand. The water glitters under the sun, and you imagine the invisible currents beneath, carrying plankton, fish, and the beginnings of complex ecosystems. The sea hums again with possibility, its surface a mirror of resilience. The Triassic world is not yet lush, not yet filled with the great forests and herds of later ages. But it is vibrant in its own way, a world of beginnings, of experiments, of small survivors taking bold steps. It is a reminder that recovery is not immediate. It is gradual, tender, fragile at first, but steady. Each root, each egg, each hatchling is a note in a growing symphony. As you walk across this landscape, you notice how time itself feels different. Millions of years stretch like long afternoons. Change happens slowly, but you can see its traces. Footprints pressed into sand, seeds spreading across plains, bones buried in riverbeds. Each mark is a story of adaptation, of resilience, of life returning. The mammals remain small, their world mostly hidden, but you feel their presence most deeply. In their warmth, in their tiny hearts beating swiftly in the dark, lies the promise of futures far beyond this Triassic dawn. They do not know it, but they carry within them the possibility of you, of your breath, your eyes, your voice in this moment. Stay here a little longer. Sit beside a stream where ferns lean over the water, where insects hum, where a reptile suns itself on a rock. Let the rhythm of this young world wash over you. Life has nearly ended, but it has not. It gathers itself slowly, patiently, reshaping the earth with quiet persistence. The silence of the past becomes the music of renewal. The Triassic is a beginning after an ending, a soft dawn after a long night. Its creatures are pioneers, its plants are settlers, its landscapes are canvases waiting for color. And though the world still feels harsh, you sense the direction it leans toward: abundance, diversity, and the rise of new wonders. At the edge of time before dinosaurs, you stand among their ancestors. Crocodile-like archosaurs prowl the rivers, while nimble two-legged reptiles dash across the sand. The air grows heavy with change. You feel the quiet approach of giants. A new chapter waiting just beyond the horizon dot. The Triassic world unfolds before you like a desert painting, touched with the first strokes of color. You walk across a land that is vast and dry, its horizon stretching far into a haze where sky and earth blur together. Rivers twist through stone valleys, their waters reflecting the pale light of the sun. Forests are still sparse, patches of green ferns and cycads scattered between wide plains of sand and rock. Yet here, in this young and restless world, the first shadows of giants stir. You breathe in the air, warm and dry, carrying with it the faint perfume of resin from conifer groves. The ground beneath your feet is cracked, its surface patterned by the sun's relentless touch. Yet as you look closer, you see movement everywhere. The land is not still, it is restless with life. Reptiles of many shapes scuttle, crawl, and leap, their bodies carrying the seeds of futures not yet written. Among them are the archosaurs, the ruling reptiles of this age. Their forms are diverse, their presence unmistakable. Along the riverbanks, heavy-bodied creatures rest in the shallows, their jaws long and lined with teeth. They resemble crocodiles, yet their gait is different, their legs held beneath their bodies rather than sprawled to the sides. When they move, it is with purpose, each step deliberate, their tails dragging lines across wet sand. You watch as one slides into the water, its body nearly vanishing beneath the surface, leaving only the ripple of its passing. Predators waiting in silence. On the open plains, other archosaurs rise onto two legs. Their bodies are leaner, lighter, their movements swift. You follow the darting shape of one as it races across the sand, its head flicking from side to side, eyes sharp with hunger. It is small compared to what is to come, but in its posture, in the way it balances on hind limbs, you glimpse the future silhouette of a dinosaur. For now, these creatures are quick hunters, feeding on insects and smaller reptiles. But already they hint at the power that will grow from their line. Pause and listen. The land hums with more than footsteps. Insects buzz through the hot air, filling the silence with a low drone. Winged reptiles, the earliest pterosaurs, skim above, their delicate wings stretched between elongated fingers. They are fragile flyers compared to the powerful beings they will become, but they claim the skies nonetheless, drifting from cliff to cliff. Their calls echo faintly, sharp cries carried on the wind. Above the rivers, above the forests, the sky is no longer empty. Life in this world is experimental. Many shapes emerge, each testing the possibilities of survival. Some archosaurs grow into armored forms, their backs lined with bony plates, their tails bristling with spikes. Others remain slender and nimble, darting between shrubs in pursuit of prey. In every direction, you see the earth rehearsing for the age to come, trying out designs in bone and flesh. Some will vanish without leaving descendants. Others will shape entire eras. The land itself plays a part in this unfolding drama. Pangaea stretches wide, joining nearly all the continents into one. Its center is dry, scorched by sun, crossed by deserts that spread like endless seas of stone and sand. Yet along the coasts, in river valleys and floodplains, life gathers. Here, plants take hold, horsetails in marshy ground, cycads in clusters, the early forests of conifers rising like green pillars. In their shade, small reptiles and insects find refuge from the heat. You sit in such a grove, the air cooler, filled with the smell of needles and earth. A lizard darts along the bark of a tree, chasing a beetle. Above, a pterosaur lands awkwardly on a branch, its claws gripping the wood. For a moment, the forest feels timeless, a place where survival plays out in countless small gestures. Each insect bite, each seed dropped, each footstep pressed into the soil, adds to the slow rhythm of life's renewal. Yet beyond this calm lies tension. You sense it in the movements of the predators, in the wary stillness of their prey. The world is not fully settled after the long silence of extinction. It is still shifting, still fragile. Volcanoes erupt in the distance, their plumes staining the sky. Earthquakes shake the land, reshaping valleys and rivers. The climate swings between extremes, testing the endurance of all who live here. Every creature that survives must adapt quickly, or fade into memory. Follow the river further, and you find a different scene. Herds of small, plant-eating reptiles gather along its banks. Their bodies are squat, their heads low, their mouths filled, with teeth shaped for clipping vegetation. They move cautiously, always alert to the shadows at the water's edge. Predators linger nearby, archosaurs with jaws like traps, waiting for one careless step. You watch as tension builds, as stillness hangs heavy, until with a sudden burst, one predator lunges. Water sprays, sand scatters. The herd flees in every direction. One is caught, and the river carries red swirls downstream. Life here is fragile, yet it endures through endless cycles of loss and renewal. Beyond the river, across the plains, the smaller, swifter reptiles continue to evolve. Some grow longer hind legs, their bodies balancing in new ways. Others lengthen, their necks, their heads rising higher above the ground. You notice how these shapes echo the future: the long-necked sauropods, the fleet-footed hunters, the armored giants. But here, they are only beginnings, sketches in the Earth's imagination. You pause on a rise of stone, looking out across the land. The sun sets in red and orange, painting the plains in firelight. Shadows stretch long, and in them, you see the outlines of what is to come. The Triassic world holds no towering dinosaurs yet, no herds shaking the ground with thunderous steps. But in the lean hunters, in the crocodile-like lurkers, in the fragile flyers, the story is already unfolding. And within this unfolding lies another thread, softer, smaller. Beneath roots, within burrows, the mammals continue their quiet survival. They remain in the shadows, their bodies tiny, their habits hidden. They do not yet challenge the reptiles, and do not yet step into the sunlit stage. But they endure, carrying their warmth and their soft fur into tomorrow. The world of giants may overshadow them, but they will wait, patient and unseen. As the night deepens, stars emerge over Pangaea. The constellations look familiar, yet strange, shifted in their ancient arrangement. The air cools, carrying the sounds of insects, the distant calls of reptiles, the rustle of leaves in the wind. You lie back against the warm stone, feeling the vastness of time stretch around you. The Permian silence is behind. The Triassic stirrings surround you. And just beyond, you sense a future pressing close, a world of scale and power unlike anything Yet seeing that the shadow of giants is already here, faint but undeniable. You feel it in the ground beneath your feet, in the air that grows heavy with change, in the restless shapes of reptiles that hint at more. The earth is preparing itself, gathering its strength for a new age, one that will echo across millions of years. And so, our quiet journey drifts to its end. You have walked across ancient shores, you have floated through primeval seas, and you have rested in the shadow of creatures that lived long before the mighty dinosaurs ever appeared. The earth has many stories. And tonight, you've touched one of its oldest chapters. A chapter written in stone and water, in the whisper of microbes, in the slow unfolding of life's earliest experiments. It is humbling to think that every breath you take today carries the memory of those first breaths. Billions of years ago, as you return to the present, carry this thought gently with you. Our world has endured fire and ice, silence and song, extinction and renewal. And still, it continues to breathe, to grow, to offer its story to those who listen. If you found peace and wonder in this journey, I invite you to share that feeling. Please like this video, leave a comment with your reflections, and share it with someone who might also enjoy drifting into deep time. And if you wish to return again, to explore more hidden corners of science and history, I warmly welcome you to subscribe. Your support keeps this quiet community growing, and I'm grateful for every moment you spend here. For now, let your eyes grow heavy, let your thoughts grow soft, and rest with the knowledge that you are part of a story billions of years in the making. Good night, dear traveler. Until we meet again in the next journey.